Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Pod. It is my pleasure to welcome to you today Div Makkar, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Wizcommerce. Welcome to the podcast, Div.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
It's amazing to have you along for the ride with me today. And before we get into Wizcommerce, you guys famously have recently raised $8 million in your Series A to bring AI to wholesale. But before we get into Wiz, you've been doing this for over 4.5 years now, running and building Wiz. This is not your first foray into technology, right? You've been a tech investor for a good chunk of your career. You were also a consultant at EY. You have this background, I guess I would call it a fusion of an engineering technical mind mixed with business or mixed with entrepreneurship. So tell us how you came to fuse these two kind of parts of your life together.
Yep. So Jason, I'll give you, you already put it there, but give you a quick career history. So started my career with management consulting. I used to work at a firm called Parthenon EY. It's a strategy consulting firm. We used to advise clients on go-to-market strategy. I think the most interesting part of my stint there was I was part of this emerging markets team. So I traveled to about 20 countries in a span of maybe 2 years. So I've done projects in Uganda, Zambia, different parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, Middle East. So it was a very eye-opening experience in that sense. So you just get an knack for like how businesses run in different parts of the world. And from there, actually got into tech investing and was at Bessemer Venture Partners. I think Bessemer was as you might know, they're one of the most leading vertical SaaS investors. Been the first check at Toast, Service Titan, Procore, and they've been doing vertical SaaS before it was cool or any venture investor wanted to write a check. So I think Bessemer is where I think out of all the different kinds of businesses I used to look at, I think vertical SaaS seemed like the most interesting to me because these small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they do need technology, but nobody wants to go through a Salesforce implementation, right? As the world is getting more and more digitized, the idea of being hyper-focused, hyper-verticalized, and the quickest time to value really resonated with me. And from there, I think I always had that bug in me. I wanted to do something of my own. When I quit Bessemer, I think I broadly liked vertical SaaS, and I was like, okay, what are the different opportunities where this can be applied to? Personally, I come from a family where I have a lot of relatives who are in manufacturing, who are in kind of B2B related businesses. And it was just a spark. I was like, I've never seen something brilliant built for like manufacturers and wholesalers in this whole B2B supply chain. So why don't I just go and explore it? So it was actually just 1 year of being on ground with people. I've sat in factories, I've been on field visits with sales reps, etc. And I think that kind of gave me clarity that this world really needs technology and the kind of tools and products that they've been exposed to, like, it's just not how it should be in 2021, which is when we started. I literally saw like massive companies being run on IBM AS400, like that black screen software, you're writing an SQL query to get data out. So it was just coming from the world of technology and just looking at that, it was poles apart. And it just seemed like a very good opportunity to bring consumer grade sort of technology to this industry, which has been left behind.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting story and one that I think you're not alone. And certainly about the time you guys started, there were a number of other B2B SaaS players that came to market for B2B e-commerce. And now there's more choice than ever before. And in fact, I would say there's a surfeit. I would say there's too many B2B e-commerce players. I would say there's too many platforms. I would say there's too much diffusion of technology out there in the B2B world now. Going back a decade ago, we had almost nothing dedicated to B2Bs. Even going back 8 or 6, 7, 8 years ago, we had almost nothing apart from heavy duty, very expensive, very complex enterprise software for manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers. But certainly over the last 5 years in particular, the world of B2B e-commerce platforms has become massively crowded. And so when you first started out, did you Obviously, you did some research, but did you just simply not see anything in the market that was headed in the direction that you wanted to head? And then secondarily, when did you become an AI first platform? Because really, it's only the last 12, 18 months that AI has captured the world's attention. Certainly the last couple of years in particular with the rise of ChatGPT. And now, basically, unless you've got AI in your name or AI in your tagline, forget about getting funded, forget about getting investor interest. Everybody has added AI to their name simply because the investing world is so enamored with AI that it
Yeah.
literally, it is almost impossible if you're out there building some sort of technology-based platform. It is virtually impossible to get funding without AI at the core of what you do, not just superficially tacked on after the fact, but at the core of what you do. So at what point did you decide, hey, I think we can do something different to what's out there? And then B,
Yeah.
at what point did you decide that AI needed to be at the core of what you do as opposed to an afterthought?
Yeah. So Jason, when we started, actually, our first idea or our first product wasn't a B2B e-commerce platform, to be very honest. Like when I looked at wholesale and when I spoke to people, it was clear to me that e- people are dabbling with e-commerce, but majority of revenue is still sales reps are still essential to that ecosystem. And the more I looked at what sales reps were using, that was actually more interesting to me. They didn't have anything that a lot of them were like calling customer service for basic data points. They didn't have the right tools to be able to do their jobs well in the market. And it was also the fact that if the world is moving towards e-commerce and wholesalers have e-commerce, customers don't really need a rep to come and show them a catalog, which is how a decade ago that was a sales rep's job. You would go into a store, you're taking them through all the products and talking about them. But now it has to become a lot more consultative because I can go online easily on your website and check out all your products. I know what your new arrivals are. I know, what you have in stock or not. So our first actually foray into the industry was to build a application for sales reps and deeply connected to the ERP so that the reps get all the data points that they need to be able to perform their job better, and also try and connect it to e-commerce so that the adoption of e-commerce increases as reps get more value from it. Just simply giving reps access to what are your hot leads, which customers are browsing on your website, does somebody have an abandoned cart? At least back in 2021 when we started, it was a very disjointed experience. A buyer felt completely differently when they shopped on your website, completely different when they called your customer service team, and very different when they called your sales reps. So these three channels just never spoke to each other, and that's where we started. And along the way, that platform started picking up, and almost all my customers who were using my sales rep product came and like they really asked us to build a B2B e-commerce experience for them. And like you said, I think I was very apprehensive in the beginning. I said, hey, there's a lot of choice. Shopify is in the space. There's Magento, and now there's a lot more of vertically focused B2B e-commerce platforms also. Like, why do you need another one? But when you go deeply and look at it, like those tools are still very hard to implement. A lot of them, they've not been built from a wholesale first mindset. And I think at the end of the day, it's the services and the integration and just making that whole B2B complexity work that is really important. So people saw us do that with the sales rep technology, and they said, hey, if you can make this work, this is very similar. Like all the data that needs to go is similar. Everything is similar. But I really want a good user experience on my website. So you either had the products that were too simple in the market, or products that were very complex, but then the user experience, etc., takes a back seat, or you had these B2C platforms which you can tweak endlessly, but it was still a 18-month to 24-month journey to be able to go live with them. So that's how we got pulled into essentially doing e-commerce, and that was our second product. And from the very beginning, we knew that we wanted to be an all-in-one platform. I love the fact that you can consolidate technology. One of my favorite companies is Rippling, which is the way they're going after the HR space is very similar to how I wanted to build this company as well. So it was a very good natural extension for us. And just coming back to your point on when did we become AI, I think once sort of Chat GPT and those kinds of technologies started coming in, a lot of the things that we wanted sales reps to do through our product, we just felt like we can make them infinitely easier. Just to give you a very basic example, I have all this information in my Wiz CRM, which is what are this customer's past orders, what categories are they buying more from me, what products did I show them last time, what's new. And now, when I used to ask sales reps, hey, how much time do you need before a meeting to really prepare for it? The best reps I would talk to say, hey, I prepare for a meeting for 45 minutes. And the average rep probably spends like 5 minutes. They just go and go on with the flow. And that's a very simple thing that we now solve with AI, where in one click we give you a full meeting prep, right? So the time you can save a sales rep in doing the tasks that they were doing before or wanted to do before, like just became infinitely easier. And that's when we said, okay, all the VC and all of that ecosystem aside, you need to do this because the user experience is just far better than what you're able to provide as just a SaaS platform.
And do you, with Wiz, and in all transparency with the audience, I've never used Wiz before. I've never seen the interface, so I can really only go by what's on the website and what you present about the platform on the website. But do you see yourself as a replacement not only for the commerce side of the business and for the sales rep enablement side of the business, but do you also see yourself as a replacement for CRMs, for PIM systems, for order management systems, for CPQ systems? Do you see yourself as a wholesale replacement for all of those pieces of technology that are extremely common in the B2B commerce world, more generally, not necessarily e-commerce? But then going beyond those core components of a CPQ, of CRM, of PIM, then we have the question of EDI, punch out, and other digital sales channels, which are already extremely embedded into many
Yeah.
B2B commerce workflows. So where do you see yourself? Like, which of those gaps do you see yourself being able to plug today without any additional systems versus where do you think this is headed and where do you think you'll be in 6, 12, 18 months in terms of plugging some of these gaps?
Yeah. So, Jason, today we are a replacement for a CRM, a CPQ. A lot of companies, different categories operate differently, but there's a lot of categories where sales reps do write a lot of orders. So our system is also like a mobile point of sale system where you can take orders, take payments. Credit card payments have become more and more common in B2B. We give them secure ways to capture card information, process the order, capture the payment later. So that side, we are definitely a replacement for your branded e-commerce, which is and the way I see the whole, there you have your super large customers who are always going to use EDI. You can't force them to use your website. Then you have that middle layer of essentially retailers or businesses that you work with where they might still not use your website, Jason, because they have their own procurement systems. They might have an ERP where they place orders. Say somebody with 10 stores that buys from you. And those people we typically see sending a lot of PDF order. People get faxes, PDFs, things like that. And then we see the long tail of B2B customers that you manage, where those are the customers you can really push on your website, right? And make them more active. So currently, I would say the small and the medium categories where we play. So we've just recently launched a AI product that automatically scans your email, reads the PDF, prepares that order to be entered into your ERP. So we are taking on that automation. We're taking on the website component and then the sales rep piece completely. I would say even over the next 12 months, we don't have active plans to get into EDI and we don't necessarily want to replace the PIM. I would, however, say that a PIM is still a 50-50. Like a lot of our customers still haven't really adopted that because we do work with SMBs and like that lesser than 40-50 million dollar revenue range. For them, what's most important is that, hey, they try and use their ERP as their PIM and they kind of stuff all the data in the ERP. So ERP integrations is like something that we really focus on. And just in the past 2 years, I would say we have built more than 10 very deep connections with NetSuite, Dynamics, Epicor, and then of course we offer FTP for some of the more antiquated systems. But those are the things that we are replacing today. And then with AI now, Jason, I think it opens up a new world of you don't have to replace like you're, for example, we're replacing photographers. So a big portion of our business is in the home decor space. And people there have to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on just getting photography done. So Wiz Studio, which you might have seen on our website, we started it as a service about 6 months ago because we felt the AI models, people would try AI to create photos, but they would never get that outcome. So we said, okay, we'll start offering it as a service. Like you tell us what you want and we'll make it for you. And we just recently, yesterday, actually launched a self-serve version of that as well. But now we're replacing photographers. Like I have companies with 100,000 SKUs, which were just never able to launch all of those SKUs on Wayfair or other marketplaces. And now they can just do that in like a span of a month with not a like a $500,000 budget, like literally maybe tens of thousands of dollars. Those are the kind of opportunity that it's opening up for us. And therefore, I think we're less interested in right now, at least to replace other stack, but just looking at what we can do with AI, which was just not possible like 12 to 18 months before.
Sure. And what are your main target markets that you're going after? Is it India? Is it the US? Is it North America more broadly? Is it Europe? What are the markets that you're going after? And how are you differentiating, or how are you trying to differentiate your product from the 50 other competitors out there that have sprang up over the last couple of years in the B2B
Yeah.
space? What's your target market? How are you differentiating yourself?
Yeah. Target market is North America, Jason. 95% of our business is North America right now. We have a couple of customers here and there, but North America is where we focus. How we differentiate is three things. Number one, it's the connected suite. So we're probably the only one that offers both the sales rep side of the product as well as the e-commerce. And for us, like both talk really well together. Like a sales rep could do something on their app and publish it on the website. So your customer can get that same personalized service that they're used to while adopting your e-commerce. So that's one big differentiator for us. And sales reps get a ton of value. And we barely ever see sales rep pushing back on e-commerce when it's Wizcommerce, because we're sending like a ton of data stream back to them on how their customers are interacting, who's in an active buying cycle, etc. Second, I would say is hyper verticalization. As I said, like I think we spent the first year just focusing on home decor and gift in that space. What that allowed us to do is like really make our e-commerce experience very tailored to what those customers expect. And I'll give you one example of that. So a lot of people in the home decor space, for example, one type of business that you're selling to is interior designers, right? Now, those interior designers are working on several projects. They have mood boards that they prepare when they're going into an active project. So on our website, the whole discovery experience, we have an app that you can set up on your website where a designer can come and just upload a mood board and it automatically scans the mood board and recommends the right items from your catalog. You wouldn't build that if you were just very horizontal. You would only build that if you really cared about that market, right? So we go very deep and then add categories. So home decor was the first one. We started doing lighting, furniture, jewelry, and then it's been a systematic approach to add more categories. We've recently gotten into food. And even there, like packaged food, we're not going into the restaurant services business right now because that needs a very different
Experience.
e-commerce experience. Yeah. And that's how we want to build this also. We want to be hyper focused on a vertical, really tailor the experience and then add more verticals with the same level of depth and not just try to be a generic, hey, this is e-commerce for everyone. And so this year, our target is to get more deeper into industry as a category. And we're already working with a few customers and it's from HVAC, etc. And just really working on what's the best e-commerce experience for this vertical. And third, Jason, I would say as a differentiator is we have our own services team in-house. What happens a lot of times when you're implementing B2B e-commerce is integrations is handed off to a third party, right? And your website build up, like the design component is another third party. Usually those two skills don't come together. It creates a big problem for wholesalers because a lot of the very few specialized B2B e-commerce service companies, and you typically end up working with a general developer who's developed Shopify stores before or Magento stores, has never worked with a wholesaler and don't understand the complexity of it at all. So just managing that project is very hard for a company usually. And I've seen a lot of people getting burnt out after 15 months of execution and just not being able to go live. So we actually handle integrations in-house, right? So if you come to us, even though we have a NetSuite connector, the connector never really works. I have to customize it because you would have customized your ERP to a level that will introduce some complexity. So those services really help us. And that's why I'll give you just one business metric. Our NRR is like 205% right now because if you then you get my sales rep product and its integration is working so well, it's a lot of times the first time something is working so well in your ecosystem, and that gives them confidence to like tag on other products that we offer. But those are, I would say, that's a long-winded answer to what are the three ways we're differentiating.
And are you guys using an iPaaS platform internally to build out these integrations, or have you created your own custom iPaaS solution? Are you using something off the
Yeah.
shelf? How are you building out these integrations? And then secondarily, do you have partners at all, or are you doing all deployments yourself, doing all system integrations? You're effectively both a product company and a professional services agency.
Yeah. So Jason, we built our own iPaaS system and it organically got built as we kept adding sort of integrations to it. We do work with agencies, but it's somebody like, it's not an active strategy to pursue and just get partners. But for example, for Sage, we do have a partner who implements Sage. And those have organically shaped up when we got a customer, we met them and worked together on a project. They got a good understanding of our system. We got a good understanding of how they do it. For Epicor, we have another partner. So we do have some partners, but I would say we still do 75% of integrations ourselves,
Right.
at least today.
But the build out of
Yeah.
the e-commerce side itself, you do 100% of that as well.
Yeah. There are times when a customer has somebody that they trust with design, etc., who can do it. But a lot of wholesale companies don't really need a lot of complexity in design. They all need like minimalist and very basic. And I think with AI, we're able to generate those mockups, etc., very quickly. And those are the things that I think are also changing, right? We can get a lot of partners to do those things, but today I feel like how much of this can we reduce? Like how much dependence can we reduce by using AI internally? Because unlike direct to consumer, these people are not thinking of the fanciest e-commerce storefront from a design perspective. They want something that really works, and functionality is always, I would say, more top of mind for B2B companies compared to the design aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm fond of saying that in B2B, function always is over form, and in B2C and D2C, it's usually form over function is the priority.
Yeah.
But how do you
Yeah.
think about there is a growing trend in the agency world for agencies to either start out as pure B2B agencies or to add B2B as a string to their bow because they see the CAGR of B2B growth for e-commerce is growing at 8 to 10x
Yeah.
what the growth of B2C and D2C e-commerce is. And so they're recognizing that the opportunity moving forward, the most greenfield opportunities in e-commerce today are B2B e-commerce. They're not in
Really.
B2C and D2C, like 98% of brands already have an e-commerce platform. And so really you're dealing with incumbency, you're dealing with re-platforms, you're dealing with redesigns, you're dealing with upgrades and enhancements, but you're not dealing with too many greenfields opportunities in B2C and D2C. Whereas in B2B, 60%, depending on what category and vertical we're talking about, like up to 60% of B2B businesses, manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers don't do e-commerce still to this day. So it ranges from somewhere to 40 to 60% don't do e-commerce at all, or what they consider e-commerce is EDI or punch out, not self-service
Yeah.
e-commerce or
No. Yeah.
and so how do you think about a future where you will probably need to engage some of these agencies because they are going really hard at the market. They're active in the market. They're pitching the market. They're educating the market. They are out there evangelizing B2B e-commerce in a massive way. And so therefore, oftentimes either consultants like myself or agencies are going to get a first look at these businesses long before they even know you exist.
Yeah. Yeah. But Jason, that's a great point. I think also the reason why we started doing this in house was like it was scarcity, right? We were an unnamed startup.
You always have to seed the
Who will
market, right?
recognize so on? Yeah, exactly. And so I think long term, of course, we have to engage with agencies. And I feel like even agencies want to provide eventually a great experience to their customers, and they would gravitate towards a platform that helps them provide that experience much faster. And why I say that is because I've worked with WooCommerce agencies which have tried to implement B2B commerce for customers, and it's not really worked well. You can't install 35 plugins and
Yeah, but WooCommerce is not
wow,
a
wow.
dedicated e-commerce
It's
it's
not
not
built
a
for it. Yeah.
dedicated B2B platform, but there's 20 to 50
Many other.
other dedicated B2B e-commerce platforms out there. Some of them are going after SMB, some of them aren't, some of them are going after mid-enterprise, some of them are going after enterprise. If we think about your target market, is it 0 to $100 million manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors? Is that kind of your sweet spot, or is it even higher than that?
I would say, Jason, I mean, from the lower end, we do work with businesses which are doing like maybe sub $5-10 million in revenue. And I would say my largest customer today is like doing about $500 million in revenue. So that we do have that. But I would say We are more SMB and mid-market focused. Also, this changes with category because I feel like a $50 million home decor business is very different from even a $200 million food service business. The margins, the gross margins, etc., are so
Or
widely
commercial
different. Like
distribution,
you get
where
very,
commercial
yeah,
distribution where there's hundreds of $500 million commercial distribution businesses.
yeah, exactly. I think the gross margins are so different that you get a very different sophistication, and so size is less important in that sense. So that's our sweet spot. I feel like on the upper end of the market, you have great products like Oro Commerce, etc. Have a lot of capabilities. I mean, you can pretty much do everything with them. They also offer an integrated CRM. But at the lower end of the market, you don't find great products. That's at least a general sense I've gotten. They're either too simple and they're simple to a default where, these businesses, even if it's a $5 million business, I can tell you, Jason, they have five complexities that they're
Of
managing that
course.
will just never be translated online. It's at least in wholesale, it's a misnomer that it's a smaller business, it's going to be simple. It's not true. Like if they're smaller, they probably will be on a very bad ERP. Their processes will be even less defined and they will have several exclusions to like the normal kind of rule. And so for that market, we don't see like platforms which can be simple, be complex while being simple. Like it's that fine balance that we constantly have to maintain. And I think that's where our opportunity at least is.
Sure. And what are the primary ERPs that you're running into in this sort of SMB
Yeah.
market? Is it NetSuite? Is it Odoo? Is it D365? What are the major ERPs that you're just is it something new like Fulfill? What are the major ERPs that you're just running into over and over again?
I would say the biggest one, I mean, on the pure SMB end, I would say QuickBooks Desktop is the most common one we come across. We barely come across QuickBooks Online because people just don't want to migrate to it. I think the capability difference between desktop and online it's quite a bit when it comes to the wholesale and manufacturing side of it. So QuickBooks Desktop, I think as you move a little bit up, NetSuite is, I would say, our second most popular integration. And then Microsoft Business Central is also something that we come across. Sage 100 comes a ton as well. Now, when we go a bit more up, like when I'm talking about 100, $200 million, that's when you start seeing like D365 and some of those other platforms.
Makes sense. Obviously, QuickBooks is
Yeah.
not an ERP. It's really just a bookkeeping platform. It's really just
I would say desktop is like an ERP. Like it has a lot of the basic ERP functionalities that you need. Books Desktop Enterprise version has it.
yes.
And that's why people are not migrating to QuickBooks Online because they feel like they have to now migrate to NetSuite, which is a much, much larger commitment.
Yes.
So I think people are just avoiding that switch. And I was talking to recently somebody who's a QuickBooks reseller. Apparently, QuickBooks is also pushing the desktop product again in the market, and there were a lot of rumors that they're shutting it down. But I think they've also realized that, okay, this is not going away. And at least for this segment of the market, this product works better.
Yeah, interesting to try to integrate with a desktop product. It just it
We actually have a QuickBooks integration is the quickest one we have because it just comes so often. So we have a connector and I we make customers who are on QuickBooks Live in 3 to 4 days. It's super quick for us to do that one.
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And how do you price your platform? What is your average monthly cost to a B2B? Do you charge on module? Do you charge on users? Do you charge how do you decide and how do you determine your pricing for a given
Yeah.
manufacturer or distributor?
Yeah. So I think I'll just talk about different products, right? So Jason, for the sales rep product, it's a very simple per user charge.
That's for
And
the
depending on the
Kai
number of
AI sales assistant.
yeah, it's for Kai and that comes with the CRM. So Kai would be an add-on. You'll have to get the CRM and then you have Kai on top of it. So that's a per user cost, very straightforward. So you pay for the number of licenses you need, which is basically the number of sales reps that are going to use it. On the website side of it, we start as low as $500 a month. Again, these are for smaller businesses, like I would say less than $1 million of GMV. And on the higher end of the market, then would go typically up till $2,500, $3,000 a month. And those would have, of course, more complex capabilities like automated shipping calculation. And we have a product modification module built in. A lot of these people modify products on the fly or are making custom products. So some of those capabilities would be in the higher tier. We try actively we never try to charge a percentage of GMV. B2B people hate that. And I was recently talking to somebody in the company signed a contract with Shopify, and Shopify is charging them 3% of their GMV essentially. And that person, he's talking about how they had to fire that person because how can you sign that? B2B people hate it when you try to take a piece of that pie, and it makes sense because they have developed these relationships over like 100 years sometimes. Like some of these companies are that old. So we
Well, and their
actively try
margins
not to,
also, sorry to interrupt, but their margins are
and the
often
margins are
are way 3% net
good,
margin in B2B is pretty common. And it's
pretty
just
common.
it's a totally different world to B2C and D2C.
Yeah. We don't charge for that, but we do offer a built-in payment processor. It's called WizPay, which is again very fine-tuned towards how B2B e-commerce works. Like it has card on file, workflows for credit card, ACH, things like that. That's an add-on that people, I would say 70% of our customers use our inbuilt payment processor.
Right. And it would be similar to a Balance or some other dedicated B2B payments platform.
Yeah.
And what's next for you guys? What do you guys not do today that you see as a gap in the market? Or what do you not do today that maybe your customers are already starting to ask you for this is our top priority over the next
Yeah.
6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So I think, Jason, I would talk about like three things that we are most excited about. So number one, I think a very big gap in wholesale and distribution today is like, even though they're getting e-commerce, they don't have the marketing chops for e-commerce. And I would say that there's a talent gap there. Not because maybe the talent doesn't exist. I think that it's hard for these businesses to attract that talent sometimes. I feel like with AI now we have this great chance to make like somebody who understands wholesale really well but doesn't maybe know marketing that
Yeah.
well, doesn't know how to segment data, to make them a marketeer suddenly. Because I think AI can do a bunch of work that a world-class marketeer would do. So I think that's one extension that we are very excited to launch. I think by Q1 next year we will have it. So I think just like number one, it has to be proactive. So we should recommend campaigns that you should send out. It should automatically help you segment data and then create that final copy which you can tweak, right?
Mhm.
I think people have intelligence and acumen in these companies. They just don't know like how e-com marketing kind of
Mhm.
works. So I think that's a gap that we're very excited to fill. And it works really well in our ecosystem. And people have been asking us. It's not uncommon to just find people sending e-blasts. And I'm talking about like major big companies where like the only marketing strategy they have is, yeah, hey, we send an e-blast every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That that has to change, right? And we are experimenting a lot on what this looks like in the world of AI. So with one of our, I would say, oldest customer, we are experimenting with a lot of AI agents. So if you have an abandoned cart in wholesale, it could be like a $10,000 cart. Does it make sense to just send them an email which says, hey, you have items in your cart, like check out? It probably makes a lot more sense to call them
Yeah.
up and like really ask them like what's going on. So we're working on just testing some AI agents, like calling agents, which can actually do that kind of job. And how would you fine tune those? So the next 4 or 5 months, our goal is to like experiment with a lot of these new things because this is essentially like a wide field opportunity. Like nobody knows what's going to work, but now you have a lot of these great capabilities that you can put to use. The other thing, Jason, that I'm excited about is content, because that's another big piece that is missing today. Like people struggle with it because the number of SKUs that these people are just carrying is it's nowhere compared to like direct to consumer. They're not launching like 5 new SKUs every quarter. They're launching like thousands and thousands of SKUs. And it's painful and it's expensive to manage that content. So Viz Studio is like our foray into that, and we're constantly trying to improve its capabilities so that it can get people the output they need. And third is just automating more of this order entry workflow. So as I said, you will have customers who will shop from your website. You'll have EDI, but there's this middle layer of customers who will always send you email orders, and it's hard to force them to come. So that workflow, I feel like that work nobody should be doing, just sitting and entering data, automating that. So those are the three big things we'll focus on for the next year, and then just of course, keep improving on the product that we already have and making it easier for sales reps to service their customers, making the e-com experience a lot better with AI.
And how, like, when you think about the investment thesis that your investors got behind when you got your $8 million raise and you were successful with that raise, What was the thesis that you had presented to them as to why you felt like, hey, we're doing something unique here. We think we've got a greenfields opportunity here to really make a dent in the market. We think it's such a massive market that even if we only capture a tiny percentage of it, it's such a massive market opportunity that there's room for many of us to succeed in this space. What was the major thesis or pitch that you made to the investors that made them go, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. That feels like an opportunity we want to be a part of.
Yeah. So Jason, I think all the things you said, right? So it is a massive market. Like it's wholesale distribution is massive, right? I think the last I checked was like $10 trillion of GMV flows through that space. So there is a big opportunity, and a lot of, as you said initially, a lot of these businesses haven't digitized. And I think the first wave of cloud also escaped a lot of these people. They didn't even move their ERPs
Yes.
online and like that. And I think our pitch was like, yeah, I think these are complex businesses, and especially in the SMB and mid market space, they need a lot more servicing compared to what people that have, I would say, that have tried to break into this market have usually shied away from services. I don't think this is a space where you can just come and hand a product and just get out of the way. They're not that tech savvy. Their businesses are very complex and you need to add that services. So I think what our investors really liked is that we had that services element built out. And a lot of investors stay away from when a startup says, hey, we're doing services. But we frankly found investors who didn't look at that and said, you shouldn't be doing this. And now if you look at just a general trend, Jason, like OpenAI is deploying has like a services arm now, because they are also realizing that just giving a model doesn't solve anything. You have to actually go sit down with companies and apply and get these to production, which is the hard part. And for a lot of these wholesale businesses, also digital transformation is
Yeah.
hard because these are not businesses that popped up last year. They have, as I said, sometimes 50, 60 years of legacy behind it. And the more legacy you have, the more legacy tech stack you have, the more legacy processes you have. So I think they saw the big opportunity, but they also saw a team that's willing to go that extra mile and really get it to use. And that's why I think number one metric that I tell everyone about is like our NRR and our GRR, because people don't leave our platform and they constantly buy more because they get a great service experience with it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing missing, even though there's like a lot of products in the market, but how many of those will actually pick up your phone, right? And respond to your query in the same business day? Very few, is at least our experience so far.
Yeah, and I guess the recent MIT study showing that 95% of enterprise generative AI projects fail to deliver meaningful ROI, I guess that plays into that narrative as well, which is that any manufacturer or distributor that tries to do AI on their own versus via partners versus via platform vendors versus via pre-integrated AI suite of technologies or capabilities. I was just 2 weeks ago, I was just down in Melbourne for the B2B Ecommerce World Conference, APAC, and we were talking, there was a lot of conversations about AI, but it's a real challenge for, especially for SMB manufacturers and distributors, to bring AI meaningfully in their business. They're still trying to figure out
Yeah.
how they, if they're a Microsoft shop, they're still trying to figure out whether they want to let their staff use ChatGPT alongside Copilot, or whether they can use Gemini, or whether they can use Grok. There are massive challenges with AI integration. There are massive challenges with AI governance. There are they're just across the board. AI is, it's causing massive issues in these businesses because of the challenges of integrating them meaningfully into the business. And it feels obviously, especially for SMBs, having a pre-integrated suite of AI capabilities that are part and parcel of the platform, that seems like a meaningful result for them, that they don't have to think about it. They don't have to custom integrate anything. It just comes out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jason, anything you build for this industry should have enough bells and whistles in terms of customization. That is a hard lesson I've learned after building into this. But you're absolutely correct. Like I speak to a lot of people and everybody's AI curious, I would
Yeah.
say. But I don't think people can even tell you today, okay, what are the 3 business areas where you think this can actually deliver ROI?
Yeah.
And I don't think they have that answer. So that's why like a lot of we are very grateful to some of our customers who are, they just come to us and say, hey, whatever you want to experiment, we are your partners. Just do whatever you want. Just experiment anything, right? They're okay with me using an AI bot to call their customers to recover abandoned carts. Thankfully, because we have that kind of customer base built now, we're constantly testing like what will actually work so that we can take something proven to the market, right? The other thing with AI is that you need to, I think, have a very sharp scope in mind. If you build something with a very sharp scope, okay, this is the key task that I'm automating, it will deliver results. But most people start too broad
Yeah.
again because all your like hearing on Twitter or X or whatever is super intelligence. It's not there.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of misnomer. Just media is the way media talks about AI versus like how it's actually impacting actual business right now. And I haven't seen a great AI, at least implementation in our category so far. And even we struggle, and we are not even a. I don't have any legacy behind, right? I don't have any legacy stack, but even we struggle to implement half of the solutions
Yeah.
because they overpromise and then they really massively underdeliver.
Look, I'm now building apps in Lovable because I'm a non-coder, but I'm a very technical non-coder. And so I'm trying to build real world solutions for my own content and for other things I want to see in the world that don't yet exist in the world. And it's
Yeah,
it's it's amazing,
no,
but it's still
it's
not easy.
amazing.
Even with my 25 years of experience in this industry, it's not easy. And so the reality is that AI is amazing, it's incredible, it's transformational, but we are still in the very, very earliest days. And no matter what anybody says, I believe we're still in the very earliest days of what we're going to see over the next decade, for example.
Yeah. No, I have a funny story with Lovable. So when we built the first version of Wiz Studio, I told my team like, hey, let's use Lovable. Like it's great at front end
Yeah.
work. And I mean, there's a lot of model API calls that go in the background, but the interface that we built is like fairly
Yeah.
simple. It's a couple of screens and stuff like that. So my engineers were not happy with that decision, but I said, okay, let's just push it out through Lovable. Let's see, like maybe we are missing something. And we launched it, and I would say we were only able to use it for 2 days in production. Like it just failed massively in production. I had to get my front end engineering manager involved. He saw the code and he's no, like scrap this. Okay, we need to go back and rewrite everything. But we found a great use case for Lovable, which is like
Oh,
prototyping.
yeah.
Like now,
Rapid prototyping is
before we
incredible and lovable.
credible, like yeah, before we go to Figma, I think everything is prototyped and Lovable now. So it's become very easy for us to go to a customer and say, hey, this is how we're planning to solve your problem. This is how it will work. Which used to be like connected Figma screens, I would say, even a year ago for me.
Yes. Wow. What an
Yeah.
incredible transformation this industry has undergone and continues to undergo. Look, very exciting what you guys are building over at Wiz. If people want to get a hold of you, I will drop a link to your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes. Other than that, if people want to get a hold of you and talk all things B2B e-commerce, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, the best way to reach out is by my email, Jason. It's div@wizcommerce.com. And I'm always excited. I'm a very hands-on founder. I love talking to wholesalers and I love going on field trips with them. Just reach out to me directly. I'm the best person to reach out.
I love it. I love it. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. Mr. Div Makkar from Wiz, what is your question for me today?
I think, Jason, I would turn to you for advice because you've been doing this much longer than I have. What would be your advice to me as we build and scale this, having worked as a consultant and with several B2B commerce, both companies as well as helping people implement it? Like, what would be your one piece of advice for me as we go ahead?
Yeah, look, I think it is really just in stubbornness and really refining your GTM. I really think that we are not going to look out 2 years from now, 3 years from now. There is simply not going to be 50 major B2B commerce platforms anymore. There just aren't. We've already seen massive consolidation in the B2C and D2C platform
Yeah.
world. It's largely Shopify and Woo. They've won the market. If you want total control and you want the ultimate cheap platform, and you want an open source platform, you're probably going to go Woo. If you want something that's SaaS with a massive ecosystem and 6,000 apps, then you're probably going to go Shopify. If you want something that's total plug and play and super easy, you're probably going to go Shopify. And yes, there's other platforms too, but they have largely captured the B2C and D2C market. That level of
Yeah.
consolidation hasn't happened yet in the B2B world, although I'm already starting to see it. I'm starting to see it with SI consolidation. I'm starting to see it with platform attrition and M&A activity. The reality
Yeah.
is it's going to be a battle. There's going to be massive consolidation of the B2B e-commerce space over the next 5 years. There's no two ways about that because there are too many platforms with too much overlap and not enough runway. That is the honest truth, and that's what I'm seeing. And so I think the platforms that can find a sustainable GTM motion and can differentiate themselves versus their competitors the best are the ones that are going to win. And what I'm seeing is that GTM is the major weak point for every major B2B e-commerce platform player out there. Nobody has built the Shopify of B2B yet. Nobody. It may
Nobody.
exist as a platform, but nobody has managed to communicate that to the market in a way that is as meaningful as Shopify has been able to capture their market. And now with B2B on Shopify Plus, they're going after the B2B market harder than they ever have before. And with more, frankly, up until now, or up until 18 months ago, B2B on Shopify was a side quest. And I think even they would admit that. Their former wholesale platform was total crap. Nobody used it. I don't think I'm saying anything that Shopify themselves wouldn't admit to, but they've really got B2B religion over the last 18 months. They poured over $1 billion into B2B on Shopify anecdotally. So the reality is they are taking it more seriously because they realize that the growth opportunity is shrinking in the B2C and D2C world because they own most of it. And so they're going to have slowing growth. There's only so many places they can put their payments platform. It's still 71% of their revenue. So the reality is they're basically a payments platform masquerading as an e-commerce platform. So they're looking for new growth levers, and they see an opportunity in B2B that they have never recognized before. So it's a super interesting space. It's a long-winded way of saying, I think unless any major B2B player, aspiring B2B e-commerce player, can find a sustainable GTM motion that is highly differentiated, I think everybody's going to struggle. That's just that is the single most challenging thing I'm seeing across the board in all of my platform clients that I work with. That's the single most common challenge that they're asking me to help them with.
Yeah. And Jason, if you have a few more minutes to chat about this topic, because this is the topic that keeps me up at night, to be honest. I think one of the differences in how direct to consumer played out versus how B2B world is playing out is it's playing out in verticals. There's a specific, like if you go to industrial, you see a completely different universe of B2B e-commerce providers. And when I go to the home decor space where we started from, like that's a completely different universe of B2B e-commerce players. And even though at a high level everybody looks similar, but and that's what I'm seeing. Like I'm seeing a lot more fragmentation that even existed in the direct to consumer world.
Yes.
And that's what's like, I think complicating it for everyone is that one single message maybe doesn't work for B2B. Like maybe you have to talk to HVAC distributors very differently than you have to talk to home decor distributors, and they think very differently about their businesses.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that if we look out, and this is a bit of crystal ball gazing, I realize, but if we were to look out 5 years from today, I think we end up probably in a world where there's five to six maximum sort of generic B2B e-commerce platforms that are trying to be all things to all people. And then we're going to end up with, we're probably going to end up with maybe 20 maximum vertical specific B2B e-commerce platforms, the likes of the Gen Alphas of the world and the Equip 360s of the world that are there specializing in heavy equipment, for example. We're gonna end up with a small handful of generic B2B e-commerce platforms, and then we're gonna end up with a small handful of vertical specific B2B e-commerce platforms. But we're just not going to see the 50 or so dedicated B2B e-commerce platforms that are out there today. There's going to be massive consolidation. That's all I can say. Is that there is this situation that we see
and
today.
It's happening. You're right.
It's already starting.
There's been a lot of M&A. Yeah, there's a lot of M&A, and ERPs are now building e-com.
Yes.
And then there are ERP specific e-commerce providers also, and it's all getting lapped up. I think the bigger companies, I think,
the likes of Orvist, and there's a lot of ERP specific B2B e-commerce platforms that without the ERP, they don't function. And so we're starting to see that differentiating starting to happen. I guess the biggest concern that I, as a consumer of technology, would have in that world is that if I decide to change my ERP in the future, then I'll also lose commerce. And so that's that's a real challenge. And I think that's even a challenge for platforms like Sana and some of the other platforms that are super ERP dependent and are very ERP specific. I think that whilst most B2Bs do not want to go fully composable, meaning that every single component is a separate component that has to be integrated. Nobody wants that. But I think modular monoliths in the B2B world are going to become the norm. So we're already seeing that with VTEX, even with Oro, with other platforms. We're really starting to see the reemergence of modular monoliths. And by that, suite-based platforms where they have 20 modules, they're pre-integrated, they're 100% native. And when you start out, you might use all 20 modules. And then over time, if, for example, the native search merchant personalization function is not up to snuff, then maybe you unplug that, you plug in a specific search merchant personalization platform, or you plug in a order management platform like a Pipe 17, or you plug in a dedicated PIM platform, or you plug in these things. But when B2B start out, they want as much of an all-in-one solution as they can get, because it's just too hard, it's too technically complex. They oftentimes do not have the internal IT chops to integrate via an iPaaS system 20 different platforms. They just cannot separately integrate a CPQ, a PIM, commerce, order management, warehouse they just can't. They can't do it. It's too much to swallow as a singular IT project. It's a boil the ocean approach that they just can't stomach. So I think we end up in a world where there's a lot more suite-based B2B commerce platforms than there are today. I think that's where we end up. I don't see a world where the Shopifys of the world, the BigCommerces of the world, the major players that kind of are household brands in the platform world, unless they start adding significant capabilities outside of what their core is today, I don't see the B2B war. I really don't.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And that's why we've been multi-product from very early on, and we had to be, because it was hard to sell just a
Yes.
CRM when they're all looking for e-commerce and
They're
all of
looking
these
for
things.
sales and they're looking for all those
Yeah.
capabilities.
Exactly. Yeah. Usually I think when I was at Bessemer, the rule of thumb, like, hey, till 50 million, you have one product.
Yes.
And at 50 million ARR, you add your second product,
Yes.
your second ad. But my second ad was maybe at 500,000 ARR, to
Yes.
be honest. Like, the moment I got 10, 15 customers, people just pulled the
The string.
e-commerce product out of us. Yeah. They were like, I need this. And so you're right. Like, I think people really want to consolidate vendors, and they don't want to go through integrations every year with different components of this stack. No, so I completely agree with that analysis.
Love it. Listen, been a fabulous conversation. I really appreciate your time. Wish you every success with Wiz, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks. Have a great day.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.